is it supposed to happen? What's it doing? Okay. Interesting.
Now your eyes do not deceive you. That is the correct title for this game, at least in America. Originally it was released in Europe under the title of Another World, Eric Chahi. Well, things were a little different in America. Now perhaps people realize that maybe the Super Nintendo or the Genesis versions, they were titled Out of This World in America. Well, but do they realize that the game was first given its American name, Out of This World, for the Amiga when it was released in America? Well, people don't even realize anything ever was released on the Amiga in America. History is being rewritten. Well, don't let it affect you. Realize that yes, many original American games were made for the Amiga, and all the great ones that were in Europe were also. They came out in America. It was a much more important market than people give it any credit for. Games important enough to change the name of the title, and that it goes on the manual, it goes on the disc, it goes into the title screens, and sometimes they can be quite a bit, like World Circuit at Jeff Kremen's Formula One Grand Prix in Europe, called World Circuit in America. Every single page of the 150-plus manual says World Circuit on it. America was a market for the Amiga, and an important one at that. This is the review for Out of This World, a request by my friend Stygian Phoenix, someone who has been here since near the start of my channel, and she commented on my very first review for Discovery, a review I still to this day adore. I was one of her first subscribers as well. She's never had that many subscribers. I think that's a kind of a side effect that you get when you're primarily doing Twitch streams and then you re-upload them to YouTube. Well, she's always deserved a lot more, and recently she's been doing some YouTube exclusives, and I put together a little best of Stygian Phoenix Greatest Hits Volume 1. I'd like to point you all to that video, and I'd even like to give you a little taste of it right now. Let her take over for a little bit here.
Why did you use your fucking hammer? He could have just stepped on her like usual, but now he's just gonna fuck up the durability.
I'm quite morbid today. I'm a funeral director. I'm always morbid. Afraid. We're gonna be best friends. Mr. Harder! Harder! Harder!
The problem with fit phones is you can't call anyone from the bathroom anymore. Well, you shouldn't.
That wouldn't stop me. Are y'all tired of this song yet?
Sex shop.
What? Sex shop?
That is correct.
Okay.
So hope everyone will check out that Best of Stygian and subscribe to her if you like her stuff. So this is Out of This World, a very classic game, especially for the Amiga. But certainly a classic all around, one of the top ported Amiga games of all time as well. A graphically stunning game that has aged incredibly well over the years. The Polygon based or vector, I think it's one or the other. Those kind of graphics tend to age incredibly well over the years compared to other styles, especially 3D. 3D has aged just terribly. Those early 3D titles, they aged terribly. The 2D stuff ages incredibly well, and this Polygon stuff, originally it was for simulations primarily. You get a flight simulator like F-16 Falcon or F-117A. These are the games that usually feature these polygonal type of graphics. But here Eric Chahi trying to put them into a platforming game, and the results are outstanding. The game, graphically speaking, is incredible, and then beyond the graphics, when you get these games that are graphically appealing, side scrollers of the time, well, they usually suffer in gameplay. Well, this game has incredible gameplay. Well, at least if you like your games a certain way. It's a hard game. But it gives you lots of chances, and every once in a while it will have like a save point. Now, it's not as generous with the save points as modern games are, but yes, modern games still approach this style. At least the indie games kind of do. When they do the indie 2D games, a lot of those types of games still emulate this kind of style where you got a whole bunch of sections to go, and you die a lot because they're hard, but slowly, you learn as you go, you die, and then you figure out what you need to do. Hard, but not unfair. That is out of this world. Now, being a game designed in France by Eric Chahi, it's actually using NTSC graphics mode 320 by 200, but it was designed in that widescreen kind of look that the Europeans got when they were displaying NTSC graphics mode. So what you are seeing has been stretched vertically into 4.3 as all Americans would have seen it on their NTSC machines, and not just Amiga Americans. I mean, all Americans on the Super Nintendo, on the Sega Genesis, Sega CD, MS-DOS, you name it. This is how a great many people saw this piece of artwork, but that's incorrect, actually. It should be displayed in that widescreen, because that's how Eric Chahi saw it. Nevertheless, that's another world we're talking about. This is out of this world, and Out of This World was only ever seen in 4.3, stretched vertically, and that is, historically speaking, that is absolutely relevant. I'm sorry, Eric. Here your artwork is being stretched, but at least I have the courage to say it. Out of This World, it's a different titled game, and in America, this is how it was seen, but at least I'm telling you all it was seen another way. And if you have a problem with how it's being shown, if this bothers you that it's not being shown in widescreen, well, guess what? 99% of all videos, especially for the Amiga version, are going to show you this in widescreen. Think about how it bothers me when it's an American NTSC game, and it absolutely should be displayed in 4.3, and 99% of the videos don't show it how it is meant to be seen. Now, that bothers me quite a bit, because I'm practically the only one that is showing those American NTSC games in 4.3 like they were designed in. Here I'm choosing to show the artwork, not as the designer intended it, but because to illustrate how important America was, that they renamed the game, and indeed, Out of This World was shown in this format. Let's get on to some reviews, shall we? We're going to start with, naturally, Amiga World, my favorite. Now, it's not the only American Amiga magazine back in the day, but it's the one I have the easiest access to, and it was my favorite, so this is, it's always going to be there. If I can find a review on it, it's always going to be in here. Out of This World, Interplay Productions, $59.95. Could not have been better named. I agree, Amiga World. I agree with you on that. I don't hate Another World, the title Another World, but I do feel the title of Out of This World it's definitely a more intriguing name to me. This extraordinary game, well, really just a sophisticated action-adventure, feels like so much more. You're a scientist running an antimatter experiment on a particle accelerator when a lightning bolt intercedes and warps you into an alien world, an intensely hostile alien world. Walk off the screen and you're in danger. Stand still too long and you're in danger. Something with tentacles at the bottom of the pool in which you appear wants a taste of you. Poisonous slugs. One bite and your history. Inhabit two adjoining screens. Sort of hunchback panther in the background has its red eyes on you. And if you survive all that, well, you'll see. If you're slick. That's just the first level. A nice array of talents are required, from working well with others to creative thinking, and the rewards for success are plentiful. Out of This World is an atmosphere to spare. Wind-blown litter crosses the parking lot in the intro. Birds populate alien skies. The pool where your characters appear as just the bright wavy underwater murk. The damnable thing about it is that it's also lifelike. That panther really runs like a big cat. The animation outdoes Broderbruns, Prince of Persia for smoothness and realism. They complain about the manual a little bit in America. There's a very big cultural difference between Europe and America. Europeans did not care for the manuals. America, we liked our manuals. We liked extra story elements in those manuals. They finish off the review by saying those are the only problems, however, and they barely merit mention. This is a positively heroic effort. I can fairly guarantee you have never seen anything like it before. Their opinion wasn't just for that review either. They kept it in mind for the end of the year, the top 10 of 1992. It made it to number 1. Out of This World, Interplay, $59.95. Now, of course, you never, unlike the Europeans who love every opportunity they can to complain about the prices back in the day, you know, there was no mention of the prices. I will mention that in the company of these other games here, $59.95 for Out of This World, that might have been a little too much. World Circuit number 2, $59.90, the same price. Knights of the Sky, same price. These are simulations. Monkey Island 2, again, same price. It's a very big adventure game. Might Magic 3, Ultima 6, $69.95. Yes, I can see that. Those are big, vast games Out of This World. I don't know if it quite deserved that quite pricey tag there, but nevertheless, the American magazines never mentioned price whatsoever. That was never a complaint. Never, ever did they mention the price other than stating this is the price. That's how it should be. Amiga Gold, a dazzling Polygon-based arcade adventure from Francis Delphine. Wait till you see the follow-up to this one, Flashback. I'd like to also note the start of the top 10 here. Here's a paradox for you. You hear about U.S. software companies trimming their agenda of Amiga game releases, and yet for the years since Amiga World's last games issue produced standouts in virtually every category, I was hard-pressed to pick only the 10 best. They even had to deal with the bullshit regarding the Amiga in America back then, but they had the balls to state that plenty of awesome games were coming out in America, and not just the European stuff. You look at that top 10 list, a lot of those games were American games, by the way. They had the balls to point that out, and so do I. Let's get on with some memories, shall we? Stygian had a nice memory of this game. Now, she fondly remembers this game as one of her favorites as a kid. She did not have it on the Amiga. She did have an Amiga, but she did not have this game on the Amiga. She had it for the Super Nintendo, and she didn't really have it either. It was one of those rented games. Now, I've yet to cover any games that I personally rented back in the day. But it's a very special relationship one has with those rented games. When you look back on it, it wasn't like this variety thing. Like, we like to rent games because we just wanted to, try out as many as we possibly could. That's not how it was in my experience. My experience was I rented the same game over and over and over again for the most part. If it was available to me, I'd keep renting it. I might try out another one, and if I happen to like it, I might get it. But if I liked the game, I kept coming back to it and renting it. We didn't usually buy those games. Like, maybe we'd look for them or something. When you've rented a game for a cheaper price, it's not very likely that you're going to go out and buy the game for the full price. I definitely look for them at the used shop that sold games, but not full price. So when you dealt with rented games, you'd come back to them over and over again because you couldn't get them anywhere else. So personally, with me, I developed quite a relationship with my rented games. They stuck in your memory because you got them over and over again, but yet you never got to dive in completely because you always had to return it eventually. it's a very unique relationship, the rented game relationship. Now, I don't know if Stygian rented this one over and over again. I didn't ask her that. But if not, well, even if she had only rented it once, and the fact that this is one of her favorite games from her childhood, and she rented it, it made that much of an impression on her. And that's just from what she was able to see as a kid, because she didn't beat it, nor did I as a kid. It took me to my adulthood to finally conquer this game. It definitely speaks of the quality of the game and the visuals and everything. The atmosphere of this game really sticks with you through time. That is definitely a mark of the games that stand the test of time, and this one I would say definitely stands the test of time. You see me intentionally going and killing myself at times. It takes quite a special game for you to want to look at those animations and stuff, to want to kill yourself. Now, you're going to hear me in the background, probably coming up pretty soon here. You're going to hear me bitching a little bit, because it's always going to be a little hard, even when you've mastered the game. It's going to have those moments, and you're going to get pissed off at the game, but it's the first times. There it is. You heard it right there. That death was not intentional. And this is the longest section in the entire game before it actually saves your progress. So to go all that way just to die at the last second here, that is very, very frustrating. But the game, it's so unique and the atmosphere is so wonderful that when you're first going back to it for the first time in a while, you will want to seek out a lot of these deaths, because a lot of them featured nice animations and stuff and very unique ways to die. It's definitely a hallmark of a good game when the deaths are sought after. I'm going to read a little bit from the game's manual, which is my biggest complaint of this entire game. It's the manual, which is awful. It has one single page dedicated to anything regarding atmosphere, and that's this page that you are seeing right here, which actually doesn't make any sense. If you read this before you played the game, it wouldn't make any sense to you at all. It doesn't actually speak to what leads up to the game or anything. You have to read this pretty much at this point in the game if you want to have any context for it. So here it is. Must not forget to insert the last calculation for a nice test. Lester Knight Chaikin? Is that how you say that? Chaikin? I don't know. I am taking advantage of the short period of rest to record some useful information in the notebook which has survived my recent adventures. I am now separated from my companion in the escape, without whom I could certainly not have got away. I hope I will manage to find him, and above all, I hope he is not dead, for I owe him my life. But for the time being, my main objectives is to get out of this maze of underground galleries, where I am wandering with no indication of the passage of time. On top of that, I constantly encounter streams that threaten to flood these galleries at any time. Concerning the weapon I have found, I have now understood the way it works. Pressing the trigger releases a single shot. Press it longer and an energy ball appears. If you release the trigger at this moment, a field of force is created. If you hold the trigger down, the ball gets bigger and becomes devastating in its effect, yet greedy in energy. So how important can the manual be to you as a player? Well, look at that passage, and everybody loves this character that helps you along. And his name, I guess, is Buddy, although the manual doesn't state this, and neither does the game. So either one of the other games, the other game does it, states his name as Buddy, or it's just, lovingly referred to as Buddy. This character, who in essence looks the same as every last single enemy that you kill in this game, minus he doesn't have red eyes. All the enemies have red eyes. That's the only difference between Buddy and the people that want you dead. While I would say that the manual is overall terrible in its presentation, that one singular page dedicated to your relationship with Buddy, I believe, helps extraordinarily with connecting you with this game and its character there. Leave it to this game to somehow, despite the poor manual, and despite having no storyline within the game, there's no text within the game, leave it to this very special game to somehow still dive you into that universe. And to the there's a couple cutscenes with Buddy there, and it all helps. Even without the cutscenes, the gameplay itself, where he pats you on the back there and he speaks to you, "My Sullivan," or something like that. This game, it captures you, and you got to give it a hell of a lot of credit for that, despite the manual. And I say despite the manual, but also because of the manual. Just because of that one single page, everybody. That's how important the manual can be. So everybody that bitches about manuals, I can't be bothered to read that. It's not worth my time. Just play the game. Absolutely not. The manuals, especially back in the day, the ones that were fully featured and really sucked you in, they do not get enough credit today, and now they're virtually non-existent, and it's because of that constant bitching that I mean young gamers back in the day, because the gamers my father's age who were on the Amiga in America, they loved huge manuals because, well, I guess they grew up reading, and they reading was not below them. Reading absolutely enhanced the joy of so many lives for so long, and if you think about it, even you people today, the very few times you have been bothered to read a book or something, if you actually give it the credit it deserves, that your lives have been quite affected by the very few books you have bothered to read. That is how important manuals and books and reading can be. They absolutely go hand in hand with games, at least back in the day they did. And I don't think that should be a territory that's off limits today, if you ask me. It should not be. I think it needs to come back. Speaking of coming back, you will be coming back to this scene quite a lot in your adventures. Actually, did I say that the caverns there were the most difficult pain in the butt part of this game, because it stuck you. You kept having to go way back in order to get further on, because the save was just so far back. Well, no, this is the longest scene to deal with, and the enemies and such, and every time you die, you have to go way back, and there's a series of events you have to do, and you have to do it in a specific way. This is the biggest pain in the butt to deal with, the longest scene in the entire game, and it's quite hard when you're dealing with the enemies in this section. Now, Amiga World mentioned the rotoscoped kind of graphics they gave to the characters in this game. Now, Prince of Persia was the revolutionary game when it came to the rotoscoping, but I do believe Out of This World does it one bit better. It's so fluid, and it can always get annoying every single time you see something that's like rotoscoped animated. There's a payoff to that, and that is it's kind of certain actions can be quite slow in the controls, and it can piss you off, but what it gives you is something truly unique, and again, that is another part of what makes you connect to this world, and it makes you feel like you're actually in the world. It's that lifelike animation, which on the Amiga can get a tiny bit slow during certain areas that have a lot going on. It can kind of slow down on your machine, and From what I have seen of the original Another World on the PAL machines, it seems to be hard-coded for a certain frame rate. As stated previously, I'm playing this in NTSC mode on an American system, which is 60 hertz, and in PAL land it's 50 hertz. It should be faster normally when you're dealing with NTSC mode. It looks like Eric Cha, he had the programming know-how to stop that from happening, to stop the speed issues from happening, although he obviously didn't change the graphics for NTSC land. But it does seem to be the same speed on either a PAL or NTSC machine, which I imagine that was done to keep the overall smoothness, the body movement, language, and everything, and maybe the music too, is to keep that all the same as it was originally intended. But there are certain sections of this game which would benefit from the extra speed boost that an NTSC machine would provide, but that is not going to help you in this particular game. I guess you'd need a little accelerator card, although it's not. An accelerator card is not needed at all for this game. The slowdown is perfectly acceptable in my eyes. You can check out any playthrough of the Sega Genesis Out of This World playing to get a taste of what the extra boost might feel like, because I don't think they programmed the Sega Genesis version to be the same as the PAL version of the game, and you can see a little bit of an unnatural speed boost when it comes to that version. So I guess they made the right choice, I would say. Let's go to my memories. Now, my biggest memory of this game is actually this section right here. Not for its difficulty or anything, it's just for the atmosphere. And I've always said I love swimming levels, or any kind of level that changes it up in terms of the scenery. I don't care if it's snow or ice, whatever they do, other than desert. I don't like desert scenes. I love swimming levels, and this is no exception to that rule. I love that he's got a breeze, so he has to go over there and find those air pockets there. But overall, the section is. I wish it was a little longer, but I do appreciate that they reused some of the elements that you have already previously been to. This is an area that was flooded earlier, and I don't believe that was originally his intention. I believe he wanted to make the game longer. But he was kind of forced to use some of the old assets again because of a deadline, or just to get it out or whatever. Which was a complaint by certain reviewers. They did not like the game's overall length. They thought it should be longer. It was too short. And they actually, for the other versions of this game, on the other systems, that is, Out of This World, for the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo or DOS, they all feature an extra added level that will be coming up rather shortly. I mean, you won't see because it's not there in this version, but it was added. I guess a lot of people probably like that level, and I played it too, and it definitely fits with the overall game, but people like to say, well, yeah, it wasn't really there. They didn't have the time to put it into the Amiga version. I don't think that was it at all. This is the original intention of this game. This is how he wanted it to be released, and it was after the complaints that they decided to go in and put that level in for the other versions to add it. Well, I don't think it's really needed. That extra level is not really needed for this game, because this is the type of game that you have, and that's right here. Here we go right into this little, I don't know what the heck this is. It looks like a spaceship, but it doesn't actually appear to fly. It just appears to roll. Now, in order to get to this ship in the other versions of the game, you have to go through quite a long and possibly worse than that other section I told you about that was bad in terms of going back and dying a lot. Had to do another one of those kind of levels in order to get to this ship and to get to this cutscene here. While that is a scene that certainly helps to cement your relationship with Buddy, who you have to help, and he helps you a lot in that scene. Again, it's not a required or needed scene because the game has already done its job when it comes to that. I think it's mostly a complaint due to the high price, and when it comes to the price, I do believe, yeah, for the price of this game, it really should have been a longer game for that price tag, but it should have been cheaper, and then what was here would have been fine. Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet alien ass. I absolutely adore and love this scene. Which is why I used every opportunity to keep showing it to you again and again. This is only seen like this in the Amiga version. They took out a couple pixels of their butt in the rest of the versions to censor it a little bit, because that was another complaint that was given. People in America are a little too uptight, but they will often say America is the reason why they got rid of those pixels and for the Out of This World version. But as you can plainly see here, the original Out of This World version in America did feature those pixels. So, no, it was the console market that they were all fearful of, not America in general. Let that be known. Let us not forget our European friends. Here's a review for another world for the Amiga. To complete the quest and return home not only requires skill and agility, but brains and intelligence. The puzzles that block your path require an immense concentration of thought to complete. And as with the greatest legendary characters, only the most conscientious of heroes will be successful in completing the challenge. I had 89%. They were all pretty much like that. Lowest, I think, was 79%. Although it isn't very evident from the still screenshots shown with this review, the graphics for Another World are superb, I would agree. They did a pretty poor job with their 35mm camera skills there. The animation is realistic and smooth, making the game very accessible. This, coupled with the atmospheric presentation, gets you hooked instantly. The gameplay is similar to Prince of Persia and has a little bit of Dragon's Quest thrown in. The results is a game that is simply enough for anyone. Instantly addictive and varied enough to keep you going for days. Without a doubt, Another World is a superb game that should be in everyone's collection. Buy it now. Did that say Dragon's Quest? I think they mean Dragon's Lair, not Dragon's Quest. How about one more for everybody? Breaking new ground and breaking it well. Delphine has yet another winner. This review does lament a little bit of the lack of text in this game, but to say it has a very film-like feel to it, as does Delphine's other Twig. English. I don't get it. The whole thing smacks of Dragon's Lair. Oh, they got it right. But with one major advantage, you constantly have full control over the central character. Another World is a superb product, extremely classy and very, very playable. It truly is a very fun game to go back to. It's a must to go back to every once in a while to play through it. And it's still, it will remain challenging. Now, obviously, once you've played it many times, there are certain things that you're going to remember that probably took you forever to figure out back in the day. But the game is presented in such a way that even the most seasoned of veterans will likely, die several times as they must get used to the game again. And I love when the classics continue to give you a challenge, but it's not unfair. It never has been unfair. And as our friend Buddy desperately makes his way to a place where he can climb up, we as well are desperately moving with broken legs to this transporter here, where the final end cutscene will take place. And the music, we haven't talked about the music because it's only in the beginning really and at the end, but it is very impactful, very really touches your soul. And I believe Eric Chahi had to he had to send some desperate faxes to Interplay, who really did. Even on the Amiga version, they wanted to change the original music, and eventually they did succeed with changing the music for like the Sega CD versions and such, because I don't think he cared at that point. But he sent them faxes, in an endless loop, and said, "Do not change the music over and over again." I admire his fight for that. The music was by his friend. It was only him and his friend with the sound effects and such. They were the only ones that worked on the game back when you could do it all. Just one person, two people, small team could make an incredible game that stands the test of time. Cheers to back then. I wish they could still do that. I wish they could still make new Amiga games with this level of effort. They did make one mistake with the Amiga version in America. Now go back to Another Earth. They did change that for, the other out-of-this-world releases to better coincide with that title, but they kept the Another Earth, which wouldn't really make any sense to an American play this game on the Amiga back in the day. That wouldn't make any sense to them. Nevertheless, that's how this original Amiga version was. Now I'm going to point you towards that best of Stygian video. Check out Stygian Phoenix requested this one. Point you to a couple other videos as well. I would again like to point my British viewers to TD Sports Football, top 20 most influential games of all time from computer gaming world, but less than 10 views from the UK. But you guys, you say you care about the Amiga. I bet you care about this game, but top 20 most influential game of all time, TD Sports Football, you don't care about, huh? And since this was a Stygian Phoenix request, I'd also like to point you towards the two other ones that she requested: Wheel of Fortune on the Amiga and Shanghai